What makes a life truly worthwhile? I had a student one time who, when meditating one night, started remembering previous lifetimes. Whether his memories were true was not the issue. What was interesting was that at the end of each lifetime, some exclamation came out naturally, which was, "What's suffering? All that effort for what?" You think of all the effort we put into our lives, and then the question is, what's left? What do we have to show for it? Usually, it's not even nothing. It's less than nothing when you put things into the balance. So the question is, where is effort put that it really does pay off? As the Buddha pointed out, everything we experience is based on desire. Nibbana is the only thing that's not based on desire. But to get there, you have to develop the path, which is based on desire. And even if we're not on the path, the fact that we have all these desires and that they underlie everything we experience means that our experience is purposeful. The mind has its purpose. The world outside doesn't seem to have much of a purpose. It goes around and around, creates all kinds of suffering, leaving a lot of suffering in its wake. It's very wasteful, but our minds are different. We live with our purposes. When people say there's no purpose in their life, they don't want to live anymore. The question is, what kind of purpose do you want? What kind of purpose will really be satisfying? Our society tries to turn us into consumers. Even when we come to the Dhamma, we think of it as something to consume. We want certain experiences, but the consumer life is a pretty meaningless one. As Ajahn Suwat often liked to point out, those pleasures you consumed last week, where are they now? They're gone. You keep looking for new ones and new ones and new ones. There's never enough, and yet look at how your life is lived chasing these things. You look back on it, and it's sad. You realize there has to be more to life than just consuming. There has to be developing. The mind has to develop in a direction where it feels that it's really accomplishing something good, something solid. That's what the Dhamma offers us. Not just neat experiences in the meditation, but an opportunity to develop good qualities in the mind, qualities that can ultimately take us out of this need to consume so that we're not feeding all the time. We're not placing a burden on others by having to feed. That's a good goal, an honorable goal, and fortunately, we do honorable things in order to find it. And as we're developing the mind, we're developing the heart as well. A good purpose in life. In fact, in most Buddhist cultures, starting with the Pali language, the words for heart and mind are interchangeable. As the Buddha realized, our mind, the smart part of this psyche we have, the part that figures things out, is not really that much different from the heart, the part that wills. The two work together. Your desires have their reasons. Your reasons are based on desires. So you have to train the whole heart and mind. That was one of the Buddha's insights, that to really develop the mind, to have the discernment that you need in order to see through how you're creating suffering for yourself and suffering for others, you also have to develop qualities of the good heart. The good mind and the good heart go together. You look at the list of perfections. Discernment, the perfection focused on the development of the mind, is just one of them. The others all have to do with the good qualities of the heart: generosity, virtue, renunciation, persistence, endurance, truth, determination, goodwill, and equanimity. In our practice, we have to develop all of these qualities, and we have to see the opportunity to develop them as something really precious. There was one time when Ajahn Fuang was going to lead a group of his students up to the Chedi at the monastery in order to meditate. The Chedi was the spired monument we had built up on the hill. They got up there and discovered that somebody had created a huge mess, so instead of getting to meditate, they had to clean up the mess. One of the students complained, and Ajahn Fuang said to her, "Look, don't complain. They gave us the opportunity to do some good, to make some merit." In other words, they gave us the opportunity to do something purposeful. It might not have been what they wanted to do originally, but we can take it as an opportunity to do something good. We're fortunate we live in a place where we can do good things and develop good qualities of the mind. When I was in Switzerland recently, I was going through one of the towns, and two Thai people came running up. They wanted to give me a donation. They'd been living in Switzerland for quite a while and had no opportunity to make merit. They didn't know me. They didn't know whether I was a reliable monk or not. They just wanted to make merit because living in that society they didn't see any opportunity to do so. Actually, the opportunities were there. There were ways in which they could be helpful to other people, but it wasn't quite the kind of goodness that they wanted to develop. They wanted to develop something that was related to the Dhamma. And you see this in all people who have been properly raised. They look around for opportunities to do good. I was reading a study a while back about how people who find happiness in life tend to be the ones who, as children, did a lot of chores around the house. It appears that there's a certain age where kids want to help with the work around the house, and in societies where they're discouraged, like modern society, they're turned into consumers and they're miserable. Whereas in societies in which they're encouraged, even though they're sloppy at the beginning, they don't quite do things right, but their desire to help is honored. They have a sense of their own self-worth, which is not based on gold stars placed on their exam papers. It's based on the knowledge that they've done something to help other people. They've made a contribution. In Buddhist terms, they've developed their perfections. So as we live in this monastery, where we do have time to meditate, remember that that's not all we do 24 hours a day. There are other things that have to be done too. Look at the other things as part of the practice. Another study I read some years back was written by a sociologist who was comparing a meditation center back east with a Thai temple back east. And she was talking with one of the people in the meditation center about how it seemed that at the Thai temple people weren't practicing that much. And the woman at the center had the good sense to say, well, maybe their practice is not just meditation. There are other things they're doing with their generosity, their virtue, their determination to develop a monastery here in a very unlikely place, that is, America, and to see it through. It requires endurance. It requires patience. It requires determination, all kinds of good qualities, and all of that is part of the practice. When you learn how to look at our life here as an opportunity to develop good qualities in the mind, then the difficulties we inevitably run into don't seem so overwhelming or irritating. They're opportunities to develop the perfections, to develop something within us that we can take with us when we go, rather than just the memory of a nice meditation. They develop good habits of the mind. These habits, once they get firmly ensconced in the mind, will see you through all kinds of things. I had a student back in Thailand who was constantly straining at the bit, wanting to get into the forest. After 3 years with me, he left and went into the forest. Ultimately, he found himself a nice little hut where he had nothing to do all day long but meditate. He was looking forward to some really great meditation, but for months his mind was scattered all over the place. What kept him going was the realization that even though the meditation wasn't going well, at least he was developing the perfection of endurance, that someday it would see him through. And it did. So look at everything as an opportunity for the practice. The meditation is an opportunity to develop good qualities of the heart and mind. Our chores around the monastery are opportunities to develop a good heart and a good mind, and the two ideally should go together. In people with just a good mind but not a good heart, their intelligence can destroy them and destroy other people. A good heart without a good mind can put you in a position where your goodness gets abused. And remember, a good heart is not just a heart of kindness, it's a heart of endurance. It's a heart of determination, a heart of persistence. When you think in this way, everything is part of the practice. Everything is a source of nourishment. It may not be the nourishment you wanted at that particular point, but if you learn how to recognize it as an opportunity and not an irritation, is good for the mind, good for the heart. It reminds you that you've got a good purpose. You're looking for happiness, which is the desire we all have, but you place some really high standards on what happiness will satisfy you. You want a happiness that's solid, reliable, a happiness that's blameless, a happiness that places no burden on anybody, a happiness that takes you out of the feeding chain, and everything that can help in finding that happiness is all to a good end. Love for the Dhamma. Back when Ajahn Mun was alive, scholarly monks would say of meditating monks, what can they know? They sit with their eyes closed. What can they see? They're still asking that question today. What can meditators see with their eyes closed? Of course, the answer is that they see their own minds. Scholarly monks would say, here we spend years looking through the books, and we still don't fully understand them. How can you understand them by sitting there with your eyes closed? The answer is that the real problems in life don't lie in books. Books contain only the names of the problems. The real problems lie in the mind, which is why we sit here focusing the mind on the breath as a way of bringing the mind into the present moment where we can watch it. We turn our gaze inward instead of outward. What do you see when you look outward? You see aging, illness, and death. You see other people's issues, their good points, their bad points. You see the world around you, its good points, its bad points. But those aren't the things that make a real difference in your life. The things that make a real difference are your decisions, the way you manage your own mind. This is why contentment is such an important principle in the practice. Contentment in terms of where you are, the situation in which you find yourself. Contentment in terms of your various physical comforts and discomforts. However, in terms of the people around you, you need to find a group of admirable friends. Even if you find just one admirable friend, you've got a lot right there. That's important. Don't practice contentment with your friends. If they're not people who live by the Dhamma or who speak the Dhamma, if they're people who engage in lying and stealing and divisive speech, abusive speech and idle chatter, then you don't want to hang around with them. As the Buddha said, if those are the only people you can find, it's better to go alone. But once you've found a good, admirable friend, a good community in which to practice, you should be willing to put up with a lot of hardships. A willingness to endure. Real practice begins here. Think again of the time of Ajahn Mun. He was way out in the forest. People who wanted to study with him had to go walking on foot, many times not even sure they were going to find him because he was frequently on the move. When someone showed up to practice with him, he was sure that that person really wanted to practice with him because that person had already put up with a lot of hardships, not only in finding him, but also in staying with him. Ajahn Fuang once expressed a similar idea. Back in the very earliest days of Wat Dhammasatthit, it was very difficult to get there. The trip from Bangkok to Rayong took almost a full day, and it wasn't an easy ride. From the highway, you had to go further on, 6 kilometers along a dirt road, muddy and potholed. He said that by the time people came out to see him, having gone through all that, he was convinced that they were really serious about listening to what he had to teach, so he'd be happy to teach them. He said that it was a lot better than the days when he lived at Wat Asokaram, on the outskirts of Bangkok. Anybody with time to kill could come out and try to kill his time too. Who knew how serious they were because it was so easy to get there? A willingness to put up with hardships is an important part of the practice, but it's not just a matter of gritting your teeth and bearing with them. The hardships are essential in helping you gain understanding. When things aren't going well outside, where are you going to focus your attention? Well, You could focus outside and just get upset about things outside, but that doesn't accomplish anything. If you're wise, you learn from the hardships the lesson that you've got to focus your attention more and more inwardly. If you're going to find happiness, you've got to find it inside. This is why the great Ajahns were able to find the Dhamma out in the forest. They had to. We tend to have a romantic idea of the forest, peaceful, green, beautiful forest, because our idea of forest life has become awfully sanitized. Actually, there are a lot of difficulties there. There are dangerous animals, not just the tigers that seem romantic and exciting, but also the day-to-day things, the bugs and snakes and other animals that carry diseases. When you're surrounded by things like that, where will you turn? Our natural tendency is to want to look for happiness in terms of sounds, sights, smells, tastes, and tactile sensations. But when these things aren't all that pleasant, where do you turn? When you get sick and there's no doctor or medicine around, where do you turn? You have to turn within. Being able to keep the mind centered becomes a life and death matter. If you can find that sense of well-being within, if you can stir up those resources of goodwill and discernment that you're going to need in order to live in the forest, in spite of the fact that things seem to be weighing in on you from all directions, that's where you really learn the strength of the Dhamma, the importance of the Dhamma as a refuge. This forces you to choose your priorities. What's really important in your life? Physical comfort or the comfort of the Dhamma? Pleasant people who do things the way you like, or people who teach you the Dhamma, people who exemplify the Dhamma. A happiness that's based on things outside, or a happiness that comes from within. Difficulties on the outside really force these issues in a way that pleasant surroundings don't. Your realization of this and your willingness to act on that realization, that's what really makes a Dhamma practitioner out of you. When you finally decide that you're not going to hold anything back, that this really is what's most important in life, and you're going to go at it without reservations. The Buddha gives the image of an elephant going into battle. The elephant fights with his front feet, fights with his back feet, fights with his front quarters and back quarters, but he protects his trunk all the time. He isn't willing to use his trunk because his trunk is his most sensitive part. The elephant trainer sees that and realizes that this elephant hasn't really given himself to the king. It's the same when you balk at discomfort. It's a sign you really haven't given yourself to the practice. The willingness to put up with discomforts, to thrive on them, that's the mark of a true practitioner, someone who really has what they call Dhamma Chanda, desire for the Dhamma, and Dhammarati, love for the Dhamma. This is what makes all the difference in your practice. If you hold back from the practice, it's going to hold things back in terms of the results you're going to receive. We miss out on these results because our minds keep flowing out. The Buddha talks about asavas, which can be translated as effluents, both in the sense that they flow out and in the sense that they're not especially clean. The force of these currents that come flowing out of the mind can drive us all over the place. Sensual desire, views, ignorance. These currents come flowing out of the mind and we tend to ride with them. You don't really realize how strong they are because you don't try to withstand them. As a result, they can push you all over the place. Only when you decide to turn around and look at them as the main issue will you be able to work free from them. The problem is that they keep pointing outward and saying, "Look, see that over there. And that thing over there is something you want or something you hate." They keep deflecting attention away from themselves. They're like politicians. Politicians do their dirty work and then they say, "See that person over there? He's doing something horrible." They get you all excited about the other person so you don't notice what they're doing. This is the way the mind operates. These asavas keep flowing out, pushing you in all kinds of directions. To withstand them, as the Buddha says, you have to create an island where that flood doesn't overwhelm you. Even if you can't yet find the ultimate island of the transcendent, You build a temporary island with mindfulness and concentration so that you're not pushed around all the time. That means taking a stance where you are. Sometimes taking a stance where you are requires making some sacrifices. But that's where you make your choice, whether you want to make that sacrifice or just continue going with the flow. Going with the flow seems easy because it's more habitual, but actually there's an awful lot of suffering in going with the effluent flow. You never know where it's going to push you. Like a flooding river, it sometimes hits you with logs and debris or throws you up against a stone wall. But as you take your stance on your island of right here, right now, even though it may seem more difficult, you begin to get used to it and you realize that you wouldn't want to live any other way. You begin to appreciate the force of the effluents. You begin to see how they push you around and you see the suffering that comes as a result. That's when you realize that you made the right choice not to continue with your old ways, sloshing around in the world, but actually taking a stance and keeping it solid. So it requires powers of resistance. We usually use our powers of resistance to resist things, people, situations outside. What we've got to do is learn to resist the push that comes from within, the push that makes us want to focus on things outside, that distracts our attention from the real issues bubbling up in the mind. That's the other translation for asava, fermentation. These things come bubbling up, and who knows where they're going to take you if you give in to them. As you begin to take your stance, you come to see the value of not following through with those fermentations, and you see the value of contentment. You see that once you make your choice, you're going to maintain your stance here as a person who loves the Dhamma more than you love comfort or whatever the defilements are clamoring for. That's when the Dhamma really shows what an excellent thing it is, what a worthwhile thing it is, why it's the sort of thing you can give your whole life to. Ultimately, the teaching asks nothing less than that you give yourself totally to the practice. But what it gives in return is more than a life, far more than worth the effort you give it. The Buddha once said that if you could make a deal that someone would spear you with 100 spears 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, for 100 years, with the guarantee that at the end of the 100 years you would gain awakening, that would be a deal worth taking. Otherwise, think of all the eons of endless sufferings involved in repeatedly coming back again and again. He said that when you attained awakening as a result of that deal, you wouldn't even think that you had attained it with pain and suffering. It would have come with joy. So, when you run into hardships in your daily life, compare them to the 300 spears a day. Put things into perspective. That'll help keep you on course. Is it worth it? Over in Thailand, old people, sick people, and dead people are a common sight. Over here, you have to go to special places to see them, hospitals, old people's homes. As for dead people, they hardly let you go at all. All you see are the ones that are made up. So we live in this bizarre, sanitized world where all we're going to see are good-looking people. Someone once made a comment when seeing some really obese people in Arizona that here in California they wouldn't be allowed on the beach, that it would be an affront to other people if someone with an unattractive body showed it in public. So we get some very bizarre ideas about what life is like. So it's good to reflect on a regular basis, to remember what spurred Prince Siddhartha to leave his family to go out into the wilderness, the sight of an old person, a sick person, and a dead person, and then reflecting on the fact that the same fate was lying in wait for him. And what was true for him is true for us. I had a student one time who, when meditating one night, started remembering previous lifetimes. Whether his memories were true was not the issue. What was interesting was that at the end of each lifetime, some exclamation came out naturally, which was, "What suffering? All that effort for what?" You think of all the effort we put into our lives, and then the question is, what's left? What do we have to show for it? Usually, it's not even nothing. It's less than nothing when you put things into the balance. So the question is, where is effort put that it really does pay off? That's what the Buddha called right effort. Right effort has to be built on right view. Right view starts with looking at life, seeing what it's like. The world is insufficient, a slave to craving, and it all comes from our desires. But then the Buddha doesn't say that all desires are bad. Some of them are skillful desires. They can actually take us away from suffering. Acting on that kind of desire is an effort that's really worthwhile. Life builds on our own actions, and our actions are built on our state of mind, which is why we're sitting here meditating, to see if we can master the skills that allow our desires to stop creating suffering and actually create a path to the end of suffering. That's the kind of effort that's well spent. And the desires that lie under that effort, those are desires worth cultivating. Always keep that in mind. Desire is an important part of the path. It's right there in the description of right effort. You generate desire to do the skillful thing. Of course, desires need something to feed on. That's why we have these contemplations about the body, about aging, illness, and death. The contemplation doesn't just stop with the fact that we ourselves are subject to aging, illness, and death. Everybody born is subject to aging, illness, and death. We're not the only ones who get separated from the people and things we love. Everybody has to suffer from that. As long as there's birth, these things have to happen. When that fact hits you, it's called samvega. But at least samvega offers a way out. You don't sit around wondering, well, suppose I came back to try living like this, or try living like that, or try to get born into this level of society, try to get born into that level of being. You see that those queries are really ill-advised. They go nowhere. Again, more effort spent for what? What results? When the Buddha advises us to look at things as impermanent or inconstant, stressful, and not self, it's to remind us that we put a lot of effort into these things, and that's all that can be created through our effort. Things are inconstant, stressful, and not self. Most things just end right there. The one thing you can put effort into that's different is the path. It actually opens you up to something different, another dimension entirely. So that's where the effort is well spent. That's where it's worth it. You look at the rest of life and ask yourself, look at all that effort that goes into it. Is it worth it? Where is the effort worth it? I remember listening to a lawyer who had fought for years and years and years for civil rights and other progressive causes, and then he started seeing the change that was coming in our country. He felt all that he had worked to build was being torn apart. That's the way it is in society. The pendulum swings back and forth. So the question is, where is the effort worth it? And the Buddha said, right here, in right effort. With right effort, you're not only doing good things for yourself and other people, you're also developing good qualities in the mind, and those good qualities can take you beyond cause and effect. That's what's really amazing about the Buddha's analysis of cause and effect. It's a type of cause and effect that can use the causal process to take you beyond the causal process, till you finally get to the point where you don't have to depend on desire or effort, but there is a deathless happiness. The Buddha once said that if you could make a deal that you'd be speared every morning with 100 spears, every noon with 100 spears, every evening with 100 spears, and this would happen every day for 100 years, but at the end of that time, you'd be guaranteed awakening. It would be a good deal. And when the awakening finally arrived, you wouldn't think that it had been attained through pain and suffering. The experience of the bliss, the sense of freedom would be so great that it would more than make up for the pain of all those spears. Fortunately, we don't have to sit around getting speared. We can meditate, sitting here quietly and undisturbed, working on the qualities of the mind. That's what actually makes it happen. So when the meditation gets difficult, keep asking yourself, Is this anywhere near as difficult as 100 spears every morning, every evening, and every day at noon? Keep things in perspective. This kind of effort is really worth it. It goes someplace and it leaves you with something solid. Other kinds of effort in the world go a little place and then they turn around and they go back, or they bite you. So it's up to you to decide where the effort is worth it. But just keep remembering, we're fortunate that we have this path as an option. We have the Buddha and the Dhamma to point it out for us, and the Sangha to keep it alive. You are not redundant. There's a phrase in the Mangala Sutta, the discourse on blessings, that one of the blessings is when your mind is not shaken by the ways of the world. The ways of the world are what? Material gain, loss, status, loss of status, praise, criticism, pleasure, and pain. That's what the world has to offer. And for a lot of people, that seems to be not only what the world has to offer, but also what makes them have value as people to the extent which they can gain material gain, status, praise, and fame, sensual pleasures. But these things come and go, and it's not the case that everybody can have them all at once. If your view of your worth as a person depends on these things, you're setting yourself up for a fall. The world keeps pushing that idea, that this is what's really worthwhile in life. This is what makes you have value as a person, the extent to which you can gain power and wealth and status and whatnot. Yet they do their best to withhold these things from you. They're talking now even about how some people are redundant. When artificial intelligence takes over the labor market, many people won't have jobs, and they'll just be excess people of no worth, which is a horrible idea. It's no wonder that the Ajahns keep contrasting the ways of the world with the ways of the Dhamma, saying that they're two totally different things, two totally different sets of values. In terms of the Dhamma, everybody has worth, and that worth is augmented by things that lie within your control. Wealth is not under your control. Status is not under your control. Other people's praise or criticism of you. You can't control those things, but you can control what you choose to do. This is how your worth is augmented. You can choose to be generous, you can choose to be virtuous, and above all, you can choose to train the mind. This is something you are directly responsible for. The better the training you give to the mind, the more important you are. True worth lies in the power to choose. There's an interesting Dhamma talk by Ajahn Mahabua that I translated one time. It was one of the few for which he wrote a little introduction, saying that this talk was given to one of the important monks of our day and age. When I first read that, I thought he was referring to someone with a high ecclesiastical rank, but then I found out later it was one of the Ajahns in the forest tradition who was not famous at all, but who was reputed to have had a very high level of attainment. In fact, it was as a result of that talk that he was able, apparently, to become an arahant. That's really what makes people important, the extent to which they can cleanse their minds. So when you're meditating, you're asserting your importance as a person. It can be an act of defiance. The world may say that you're worthless, but you're showing that you're not. You see so many young people now who are committing suicide because the world seems to be telling them that they're worthless, redundant. It's horrible that the world has gotten into people's minds so thoroughly. It's time to not let yourself be defeated by the world. Time to exert your importance by looking for happiness in ways that are harmless. This is something of inherent value. Wealth doesn't have inherent value, nor does status, nor does praise, nor do sensual pleasures. Generosity has inherent value. Your virtue has inherent value. The development of good qualities in the mind has inherent value, and so you can choose to take part in that value yourself. There was a famous thinker in 19th to early 20th century America, William James. He went through a very bad depression when he was young. He wanted to be an artist, but his father did everything he could to prevent that from happening. So James went into a pretty severe depression. He began to wonder if he had any free will, if anybody had any free will. He finally got himself out of the depression by deciding that his first act of free will would be to choose to believe in free will, that he had the power to choose his actions and to make a difference in his own life. Then, building on that, he became a very famous thinker, psychologist, philosopher. So it does require an act of will. And to strengthen that act of will, it's important that you believe that you can make a difference in your life by training the mind. This is one of the reasons why, even though the Buddha was not the sort of person to go out and pick fights with people over matters of doctrine, he did go out and challenge people who taught that you had no choice in the present moment, or that the present moment was totally shaped by forces coming in from the past, either actions you've done or actions of a creator God, or that it's totally random. Those teachings, he said, left people unprotected and bewildered. Bewilderment is our normal state when we're faced with suffering and pain, and those teachers were basically saying, if you're suffering right now, there's nothing you can do about it. But no, one of the Buddha's most basic teachings is that, yes, there is something you can do about it. That's what the Four Noble Truths are all about. You wonder what the Buddha would think about teachings that are said in his name nowadays, that you don't do the practice, that there's no you there to do the practice. It's just conditions happening. That sort of thinking defeats any sense of your worth as a person or of the worth of your choices. The Buddha was very clear that what you choose to do right now, what you choose to focus on, what you choose to think about, which intentions you choose to act on, is of prime importance. He started Rahula, his son, on the path of the Dhamma by having him look at his actions to see the extent to which his actions do have an impact, and trying to make that impact harmless. That theme carries all the way through the practice. When you're meditating, you're trying to find a happiness that's harmless. To do that, you have to reflect on your actions, how you focus on the breath, how you adjust the breath, how you create a sense of pleasure, a sense of rapture even, through the way you breathe, how you get to know the way you shape your mind. Then you can shape your mind in ways that gladden it, concentrate it, release it. This is all within your power. So each of us has an inherent power. We're already shaping our present moment experience. It's just that, for the most part, we're doing it in ignorance, and as a result, we suffer. If you can learn how to look at what you're doing and see the extent to which your feelings and your perceptions shape the state of your mind right now, you can do something about it. As the Buddha says, basically, you can take that principle all the way to the ultimate happiness. But even if you don't go that far, the fact that you do decide to be as skillful as you can in how you run your mind, that's taken a huge step right there. So it's important that we not let ourselves be defeated by the world, especially when we see that the leaders of the world don't seem to care about anybody except themselves and their friends. We have to keep reminding ourselves that what other people think about us, whether they esteem us or not, is not the issue. What's important, and what makes us important, is the fact that we take responsibility for our actions, and we try to do them as skillfully as we can. So as you meditate, it's an assertion of your worth in defiance of the world. Think about the Forest Ajahns. Many of them were born at the very bottom of the social ladder in Thailand. It was bad enough that they were peasants, but they were also peasants from the Northeast, and the rest of the country tended to look down on the Northeast. So the fact that they found the Dhamma and practiced the Dhamma in a way that called into question a lot of the official versions of Dhamma that were coming out of Bangkok at the time, it was very bold. But it was their honesty that guaranteed the truth of what they were doing. Bangkok was saying in those days that not only was Nibbana no longer open, even Hana was not available. In spite of the fact that the Buddha said that the Dharma is timeless, very sophisticated arguments were given to support the official line. But the Forest Ajahns were not swayed by those arguments. They claimed their right to practice the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma, and they shaped themselves to be in line with the Dhamma. That was what gave power to their teachings. So the practice of the Dhamma in line with the Dhamma is a defiant act. We're saying, in effect, that we're not going to be swayed by the ways of the world, what the world has to offer. After all, you know what the world has to offer: the possibility of material gain, status, praise, and sensual pleasures. But as the chant we recited just now reminds us, the world really offers no shelter. It lures us with these things, but it can't provide us with any real protection. Whereas the Dhamma protects all those who practice the Dhamma. There's an inherent worth to the Dhamma, and as we turn ourselves into Dhamma, we give ourselves a heightened inherent worth.